had a candy striper. So it was really a reporter tried to get up there to get pictures of Pop. He got a picture taken. One of the security guys or some got in and took the camera from her.
Tupac's final moments in the ICU had been captured by a rogue reporter who had disguised himself as hospital staff. IMDb have indexed 2 photos which they claim are the very last real photos of Tupac on his deathbed. We cannot show them at this specific moment in the intro, but if you stick around until the end, we will reveal what are being reported as his final ever photos. We are going to take a look into the timeline of the final pieces of media captured of Tupac before his untimely demise. Tupac's earliest moments prior to his demise, which had been captured on film, had been from during his time in Vegas casinos. He had been captured in numerous videos and photos in Las Vegas casinos on September 7th, 1996. He is seen wearing his $1,200 orange silk Guerrero Raw shirt, Armani blue jeans and his Euthanasia Angel of Death chain. Seen in footage walking through the casinos in Vegas, he is seen being protected by just one bodyguard, being Frank Alexander. Frank Alexander had been a bodyguard under Rightway's protective services. Reggie Wright Jr., a former Compton cop, had started the security service under a loan of $300,000 by Suge Knight. Reggie would become the head of security for Suge's record company, with Rightway being employed by the company. Suge was the head of record company Death Row Records, who had been in a joint venture with Interscope of Jimmy Iovine and Ted Fields, with Interscope taking care of distribution and marketing. Tupac had been signed under Interscope and had his contract amended in October of 1995, where he would begin to make music under the Death Row brand. Rightway Security had been employed by Death Row to provide protection for its artists. Rightways had employed upward of 25 police officers to work security for the label. Frank Alexander, who had been seen in the footage protecting Tupac alone, revealed to have attended a security meeting on the day of the trip with a dozen other bodyguards. The bodyguards had attended a meeting at an attorney's office where they had met Vegas attorney George Kalisis. George Kalisis had been known for representing Vegas police officers in corruption cases, as well as acquiring undisclosed loans for Clark County judges. Kalisis had played a role in getting Tupac to Vegas, as he had worked with Death Row's attorney David Kenner in order to set up circumstances in Vegas which Tupac had to abide to or go to prison. Tupac had fired both David Kenner and Reggie Wright Jr. 2 weeks prior to the Vegas trip. This memo shows a notification of termination from Tupac to Reggie Wright Jr. being in the last week of August of '96.
Tupac's family says in the months before his death, Tupac was fast catching on and preparing to break free of his reliance on Death Row and its lawyer, his lawyer, David Kenner.
A few days before he was killed, he formally sent a letter telling David Kenner that he no longer can represent him, and basically firing him.
Tupac, during a time of determination, called an audit on Death Row Records through the advice of his godmother and business advisor Yasmin Fula. Tupac had been informed it was a conflict of interest having Kenner as his entertainment attorney and defense attorney while he also worked for the record company. Frank Alexander revealed he had been a witness to Tupac calling an audit on Death Row, where he had attempted to take his master recordings from a studio session, but Suge Knight had informed security to stop him. Tupac's mother Afeni would also reveal how they were unable to get an accounting on his music, and David Kenner would not allow the estate access to the masters.
And now Tupac's mother says not only is her son's money missing, but more importantly, the master recordings of the some 200 songs he wrote and sang, potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
We don't know where the masters are because we can't get them accounted.
Reggie Wright Jr. had been in audio claiming if Suge Knight or David Kenner had been mad at Tupac, they would have sent him back to prison to control him.
Yeah, David Kenner or Suge Knight or anyone like that was upset with Tupac. What would they would have done? Institutionalize Tupac. Having to pay bonds revoked from me. They would have him go back to jail and humble him again.
When Tupac had terminated the attorney and security service, a case had been brought against him in California which had violated the state's three strikes law. Tupac had been bailed out of prison using his own royalties from Interscope Records under an amended contract to affiliate with Death Row. Tupac had been on probation in LA County. The 2001 Holler If You Hear Me book by Michael Dyson reports that the new case had been brought against Tupac after somebody had tipped off the police that Tupac had narcotics in his car. The narcotics had been being provided by Death Row, with Tupac's former group member Napoleon revealing most of the time it had been Death Row artist Snoop Dogg who is alleged to have been supplying them. Snoop claimed it had been Suge Knight's blood gang members who had been supplying him. Tupac, when being bailed out of prison in October of 1995, had taken on new attorneys which included Death Row's attorney David Kenner along with attorney Sean Holly Chapman. Chapman had Tupac plead guilty in the case under conditions called open to the judge, where a report can be put forward in recommendation by the defense for the judge to then agree on. Chapman had hired Dr. Sheila Balkan to prepare the sentencing report where the defense put forward conditions that Tupac serve community service under a benefit performance as the sentencing. The judge agreed to the conditions, to which the benefit gig then had to be created. David Kenner had worked with Las Vegas attorney George Kalisis to set up the benefit gig. Kenner had done this to move the case to Nevada to circumvent the California Free Strikes law. Tupac had therefore been under a court order to travel to Vegas under conditions of probation to serve community service. Whoever had tipped off the cop who had pulled over his vehicle, according to Michael Dyson's book, had been responsible for this court order occurring, therefore placing Tupac in Vegas where he would be killed. Kalisis had created a fundraiser event for a Vegas Metro cop called Patrick Barry, who had an organization called Barry's Boxing. Mike Tyson was having a boxing match in the MGM Grand in Vegas on September 7th, 1996 against Bruce Seldon. The event was used alongside the fundraiser for the cops' boxing organization, which was going to be held in Club 662 in Vegas. The club had been formerly known as Botany's, which had been controlled by the Colombo crime family. Helen Thomas had been the club's owner, who had secured it from a loan from her husband Carl Thomas, who had been convicted for skimming money off the Stardust Hotel in Vegas for the Chicago mob. Suge Knight had gone into business with Helen Thomas and rebranded the club as 662, with the numerical value spelling out MOB on a keypad. This was a reference of Members of Blood, Suge Knight's Compton-based street gang. Kalisis had been the club's business manager and had worked with David Kenner in setting up the fundraiser for the Vegas Metro Cop, which a judge had approved as suitable circumstances for Tupac to perform in benefit for the cop on a night as community service. Therefore, Tupac's freedom was used against him to get him to go to Vegas. He instead was supposed to travel to Atlanta to confront his cousin Kenny Lesane about selling his possessions. This ties back into Reggie Wright Jr.'s claims that David Kenner and Suge Knight would put Tupac in prison if he were to aggravate them.
Yeah, David Kenner or Suge Knight or anyone like that was upset with Tupac. What would they would have done? Institutionalized Tupac. Having to kill bond revoked from me. They would have him go back to jail and humble him again.
It had been the same time of his audit against Death Row. Frank Alexander and a dozen other bodyguards who had attended the security meeting with George Kalisis and Reggie Wright Jr. on a day had been told to disarm themselves on a night while bodyguarding Tupac. Bodyguard Michael Moore had refused to give up his weapon, so had been removed from Tupac and reassigned to Club 662. This is why Frank Alexander is seen alone guarding Tupac in the casino footage. Tupac was also captured gambling in the casinos. Frank revealed Tupac had 10 grand on him, which would be tied into why he had called an audit on Death Row. Frank revealed Tupac had been getting paid an allowance of $10,000 every Friday from Death Row. He was owed roughly $4.5 million in royalties, but instead had been getting 40 grand a month as an allowance. The video footage captured in the casino would further go on to be captured after the Tyson fight. The Mike Tyson-Bruce Seldon fight had only been for 1 minute 49 seconds, with Tyson winning by knockout. Tupac and Suge Knight have been captured in footage following the fight. Suge Knight's Compton mob pyro enforcer Alton Bunchy McDonald can be seen with a security radio during this time. This photo shows Frank Alexander using the same radio. Frank Alexander had revealed he had been informed at a security meeting that not only would he be disarmed, but he would also have no security radio. Kevin Hackey was a former Compton cop who had been the previous police partner of Reggie Wright Jr. Hackey had been hired under Right Way's protective services. Hackey had applied for a job with the CIA and had been recruited by the FBI and ATF to work as an undercover asset in an investigation the feds had against Death Row.
Hackey, according to these court filings, worked for 2 years as an undercover agent for the FBI and ATF helping the feds.
Tupac's former rap group Outlaws member Napoleon had revealed in his podcast in 2021 that Hackey had not only have been selling guns into Death Row, but were also their connection into bulletproof vests.
There was a guy named Hackey He was a security guard. Come to find out, he was an undercover ATF, but he was selling guns to us. He was selling us guns, bro.
Was that the undercover purpose of it, though? Or
I don't know if that was saying sell them the guns. Maybe they were saying sell them the guns so we can keep track of them.
Yeah.
But he was selling us guns, and also he had a connection to bulletproof vests.
Hackey had been requested to work by Right Ways on the night, but had been reassigned by his police work to stay at the Compton Unified School District Police Station. Hackey was not only in possession of Tupac's bulletproof vest, which had been removed on the night, but he was also in possession of Frank Alexander's security radio. Tupac was therefore left with no bulletproof vest, with only one unarmed bodyguard with no security radio. The security radios had 3 frequencies on it, which had been between Right Way security guards, Suge Knight's gang member enforcers, and the staff of Death Row. In the footage of Frank Alexander walking with Tupac in the casinos, Frank revealed he had lost Tupac during this time, as he had to use a payphone to contact the security detail, being because his radio was missing. Tupac can be seen on video after the fight being amped up from watching Mike Tyson. He would go on to give his final interview to BET.
An interview to BET, not knowing it would be his last.
Y'all see that? 50 punches, I counted them.
Orlando Anderson, who was a Southside Compton Crip, being the rivals of Suge Knight's Compton mob Pyrus, had been spotted in an MGM Grand by Pyru member Trayvon Lane, who had been with Suge Knight. Trayvon Lane had made them aware of the Crip, who had been in a former altercation with him months prior in the Lakewood Mall, being after the Crips had attempted to steal his Death Row chain. MGM security footage shows Tupac running over and jumping on Orlando Anderson, followed by Suge Knight and the Compton mob Pyrus. Tupac's euthanasia chain had broken during this time, to which had been collected and fixed by Frank Alexander. MGM footage shows them in a rush to exit the MGM Grand, followed by a large crowd of fans. After seen exiting the MGM Grand, Tupac had gone to his hotel room in a Luxor to change his outfit. His cousin Jamala Lassane and fiancée Kadada Jones, along with members of his rap group The Outlaws, had been with him at the hotel. Tupac had been documented as telling them about the fight he had just gotten into. Outlaws member Idi Amin, along with Kadada Jones, had asked Tupac about putting on his bulletproof vest. His cousin Jamala Lassane, who had been with him in the hotel, had revealed in an Art of Dialogue interview that he was in fact not in possession of his bulletproof vest. This was as Kevin Hackey, who had been working for the feds, had been reassigned on a night, removing him from Vegas, which had therefore removed the bulletproof vest from the situation as well as the security radio. Tupac had changed outfits into a green 1996 Nike basketball jersey and had wore the euthanasia chain, which had been repaired by Frank Alexander. Suge Knight had gone to the Luxor with Tupac, to which they had then travelled to Suge Knight's Vegas home for Suge to change outfits. This is the final footage of Tupac, which had been captured after Tupac had left the Luxor. Suge had not yet changed, indicating it had been captured prior to them making it to Suge Knight's residence. They can be seen talking to a group of women on a pavement outside somewhere in Vegas. The video shows Tupac's lost conscious hug being with a 19-year-old fan called Andrea Jennings. Tupac would go on to be captured in what had been called his last ever photo. Tupac and Suge Knight had departed from Suge Knight's residence to travel to Club 662 so Tupac could perform community service for the Vegas Metro Cop. Frank Alexander had used Kadada Jones's car to travel behind Suge Knight's BMW, which had Tupac and Suge Knight in it. Frank was traveling with Tupac's rap group Outlaws members Idi Amin, Yaki Gaddafi and Castro. Compton mob Pyro enforcers Trayvon Lane and K-Dub had been traveling directly in front of the BMW. Alton Bundry McDonald had been traveling on the side of the BMW, while fellow gang member Neckbone had been traveling in front of Bundry. Kevin Hackey had revealed that he had seen official FBI documents which stated 2 FBI agents and 1 ATF agent had been in a car behind Frank Alexander's. While traveling on Harmon Avenue, Leonard Jefferson, a film student, had captured the last conscious photo of Tupac in the BMW with Suge Knight. After the final photo had been captured, Vegas bicycle cops had pulled over the BMW for not having license plates and causing a nuisance with music. Suge Knight had showed the cops the license plates had been in the trunk, to which they were then let go. Suge Knight's former limo driver Death Row Dave, who had been in Vegas, had revealed to LAPD detective Russell Paul that the BMW had been provided by Death Row General Manager Norris Anderson. Suge had been made aware of a fault which the car had, which may be an issue for security. Even though the BMW was new, it had come with a malfunctioning door on the passenger's side, which happened to have been Tupac's side. The door could not be opened unless a certain amount of push and leverage had been applied, to which only Suge Knight had been shown. Tupac, therefore, once in the BMW, had been trapped inside as his door could not be opened as usual. While driving to Club 662, the BMW had stopped at an intersection on Flamingo Road and Colville Lane. The formation of cars the entourage had used had caused the BMW to be boxed in. Suge Knight on 2 different occasions had alleged that they had been purposefully boxed in as part of a setup. In the 2014 TV documentary American Dream, American Nightmare, Suge had spoken on how in the last minute, K-Dub, who he had referenced as a dude who messes with Reggie Wright Jr., had gone on to cut in front of them, causing the box formation.
At the last minute, one of the little dudes who deal with Reggie, from something that he know not to do, he cuts in front of us.
In a 2018 prison interview with Michael Douglas Carlin, he had claimed that Frank Alexander had told him that Frank had been told to use the box formation.
And Frank blocked us in, purposely. Later they told him to do it, you know?
Witnesses on the scene described a white 4-door Cadillac driving up alongside the BMW in an empty lane, to which a left-handed shooter wearing black gloves had opened fire upward of 13 times. Tupac had been hit 4 times while Suge Knight had been hit in the head. Kevin Hackey had revealed that paperwork had shown how the FBI and ATF agents who had been in the car behind Frank Alexander's had been carrying out surveillance, catching a shooting on tape. This clip is a recreation of the shooting which I had made with permission from the animation rights holder RJ Bond, which had been used in a Tupac cover-up series on Tubi. A low-quality video on YouTube claims to show a fan capturing the last 4 shots into the BMW, but several inconsistencies in the video footage outline it as fake. The footage is missing the presence of K-Dub's car, which had been present at the scene in front of the BMW. It contains more inconsistencies, such as it missing a large plume of smoke which bodyguard Frank Alexander reported seeing after the shots had stopped.
The arm came out of the back door and it started firing into Tupac. Bang, 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 bang. And once it stopped, all you saw was all of this smoke going up in the air.
The footage also shows the BMW speeding off immediately along with the Cadillac. Frank Alexander, however, confirmed that the Cadillac had taken off while the BMW had stayed stationary momentarily, which gave enough time for Frank Alexander to run towards the vehicle. K-Dub had also claimed to have gotten out the car in front and had approached the BMW. He claimed to have seen Suge Knight clutching the steering wheel, looking shocked.
I jumped out my car and ran back to the car, and I Suge, you're all right, and he was just holding on to the steering wheel. It was like he couldn't believe it either. It was like he was like in total shock.
The footage is believed to be a behind-the-scenes phone camera video from one of the numerous films and TV shows made on the case. The Netflix Diddy documentary had released never-before-heard dispatch audio from the emergency response to the incident.
I'm out on one right now. I got a couple guys shot. I need medical ASAP. At the Boulevard in Harmon on his blackout.
Bicycle cops had made the dispatch and had given chase to Suge Knight's BMW, which had been driving erratically. While chasing the vehicle, the cops had been updating its location over the dispatch. Chris Carroll, a bicycle cop who had been on patrol alone for the Tyson event, had responded to the dispatch and made his way to the scene. He claimed to have given chase to the BMW, which had hit a curb when taking a left and then had come to a stop. The car had 2 blown-out tires from Suge Knight's driving, which included jumping several medians and hitting curbs. The BMW had come to a stop on Harmon Avenue, being the same place the final photo of Tupac had been captured just prior. Chris Carroll attempted to pull Tupac out of the BMW, but the car door was stuck due to the malfunction. Suge Knight had then been allowed to assist with opening it. Chris Carroll tried to get a dang declaration off of Tupac, but he had responded by saying F you.
I looked at him and I said, who shot you? What happened? And he looked in my eyes. This is the first time he's even really acknowledging my presence. And he looked me in the eyes and said, you. And that was it.
Tupac and Suge Knight were then taken to hospital in an ambulance. The Outlaws members had been being held by the police, with this video showing Gaddafi being questioned. Police reports revealed he said he would be able to identify the driver. Gaddafi was the son of Yasmin Fula, who had been assisting Tupac with the audit against death row. Gaddafi had then been shot to death 2 months later. News footage of the crime scene had captured the BMW riddled with bullet holes on the Vegas Strip. Crime scene photos of the BMW's interior would show that Suge Knight had been in possession of one of the security radios inside the BMW. Bodyguard Michael Moore, who had been removed from Tupac for refusing to disarm himself, had revealed hearing suspicious information over the radio. Michael Moore had been with Reggie Wright Jr. and George Kalisis at Club 662 during the time of the incident. In the 2007 documentary Tupac Assassination, Conspiracy or Revenge by R.J. Bond, Michael Moore claimed to have heard the words Gotham come over a security radio, being while he was with Reggie Wright Jr. and George Kalisis. He claimed a secondary voice had then come over the radio which had said, "Don't say anything over the radio."
While I was working at 662, I heard something over the Nextels that we all carried for security. And what I heard was, "Got him." Someone else came on the radio and said, "Don't say nothing over the radio."
Moore claimed the first voice which had said got him had been one of the Blood Gang members who had boxed in the BMW. He claimed the second voice to his knowledge had been that of David Kenner's.
A week before Tupac's death, he fired David Kenner, and people said publicly that's going to get him killed.
Suge Knight, in a 2025 interview with Piers Morgan, had claimed he had questioned David Kenner about the radios. Suge had said that David Kenner was known for always telling them to never say anything over the phone, and further claimed to have found Kenner with a security radio which he had not told the truth about not having.
Another guy hits on the radio. They said they think he's a white guy or a lawyer, and they said, "Hey, don't talk on the walkie-talkies on the radio. Don't talk on the air." I know that attorney David Kenner always says, "Don't talk on your cell phone." I told David, I said, "Hey, was that you on the walkie-talkie? Because that's your line. Don't talk on the phone." Now you're the one saying don't talk on the walkie-talkie. He said, "That's not me talking on the walkie-talkie." So Kenner has sent some of my boxes and files to another attorney. When we discovered a walkie-talkie in the boxes, it blew me away.
Tupac's cousin Jamal Hussein, in an Art of Dialogue interview, had confirmed that David Kenner had been in Vegas, as she had witnessed Suge Knight meet up with him on a drive up there. Limo driver Death Row Dave, who had also been in Vegas, had confirmed to have seen David Kenner at the security meeting where they were told to disarm.
We were told, I don't know, 2-3 hours earlier, don't carry our guns in Vegas. The lawyers said don't carry our guns because they're trying to get us gun permits in Vegas. It was David Kenner, but there was also another lawyer there from Vegas.
Footage from outside the hospital had been captured by news crews. Nighttime footage had been captured in the immediate aftermath, which shows Death Row artist Danny Boy outside using a phone. The daytime footage showed Suge Knight outside with a wound to his head from the incident. They had been taken to the University Medical Center. Tupac's worst injury had been a collapsed lung. The Dear Mama documentary put out in 2023 had showed scenes from the hospital which also displayed an x-ray revealing a bullet in the lung. As a result of what had taken place, Tupac was placed under sedation into a medically induced coma, being overseen in the ICU. The doctors performed emergency surgery where they had removed the affected lung and placed Tupac on a respirator. News reporters gathered outside the hospital and captured footage of several people visiting Tupac. One piece of the footage includes MC Hammer, who had recently signed to Death Row. Yaki Gaddafi can be seen outside the hospital getting a pat on the stomach in support. The Outlaws had also formed a security perimeter around the hospital, being due to ongoing death threats which were being directed towards Tupac. It had been at the hospital where bodyguard Kevin Hackey, who hadn't been available to provide the bulletproof vests and also had removed Frank Alexander's security radio, had while there been discovered as an undercover asset for the feds. Police reports show how Hackey had been discovered as an undercover asset after he had been using the phone in the hospital to report Tupac's condition back to the feds. He also attempted to use his federal credentials against the staff for access of the hospital.
Kevin Hackey gets into a scrape with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police when he reveals to them that he may be involved with a federal law enforcement agency.
Tupac's brother Mopreme revealed how when he had visited Tupac began to shake the hospital bed as if he badly wanted to tell Mopreme something but was unable to do so.
He had tubes in his throat and his nose and his mouth. He was trying to tell me something. He was shaking the bed. He was looking at me.
While Tupac was in the ICU, Reggie Wright Jr. had right-way security guards on the door of the room. Reggie, in an interview with the YouTube channel Cam Capone News, had claimed a security breach had occurred and somebody had gotten access to the room. A reporter disguised as a candy striper, which is a hospital volunteer, had been able to breach security and had gotten into the ICU with a camera. This photo is indexed on IMDb as the final photo of Tupac which had been captured. A clearer image is given when restored or reimagined with AI. The IMDb submission of the photos comes from a 2017 YouTube video claiming to show the only two existing photos of Tupac on life support. Tupac had multiple cardiac arrests on September 13, 1996, and had been revived by doctors numerous times. Tupac's mother Afeni, when getting knowledge of this, told the doctors not to continue with reviving him. The University Medical Center where Tupac was being treated at had been one of the best in the world for trauma treatment and could have kept him alive in the same comatose condition. The cop on the scene, Chris Carroll, had claimed Tupac had practically already passed away at the scene 6 days prior, but the doctors were able to keep him alive. Footage of the coroner's van had also been captured pulling up to the hospital. Reporters can be heard saying it's happening, being in reference to the truck pulling up, knowing that it's for Tupac.
It's happening. The coroner's truck drove up.
Afeni had been captured by news crews running away in grief. She did not want to make a statement to the press telling them that he had passed away. Multiple fans and members of the Outlaws can also be seen overcome with grief after finding out the news. Tupac's body was transported on a gurney from the ICU to the coroner's van, where it was then transported to the Clark County Coroner's Office. An autopsy had been carried out on Tupac's body, and during it, somebody had taken photos of it taking place. The photo, which we cannot show here, had been released in a 1997 book by author Kathy Scott. Internal Affairs of Vegas Police had done an investigation on how the autopsy photo had gotten to Kathy Scott. The investigation revealed several different people, including police officers, had taken photos of Tupac's body in the morgue. The National Enquirer was offering a $100,000 reward for photos of Tupac's body in the morgue. The investigation had been carried out as detectives would be able to apply embezzlement charges if it was found out that morgue employees had used county property to take the picture and profit from it. It was found 2 general assignment detectives had taken Polaroid photos of Tupac's body in the morgue. They claimed it was carried out for use in a police training book. The photos were not the ones which had been given to Kathy Scott. The photo which surfaced in the book, investigators claimed had not been an official coroner or police photo. 9 Vegas cops had been questioned, but nobody had been charged due to lack of evidence. Arresting footage of one of the suspects would be captured over 20 years later. Body cam footage from 2023 had showed the arrest of Dwayne Davis. He had been arrested at his residence in Vegas, being charged with the Tupac murder 27 years later. The arrest came after the former Southside Compton Crip gang member had gone on TV shows and internet platforms claiming to have assisted his nephew Orlando Anderson with carrying out the murder. Under his claims, he states the white Cadillac contained himself as the passenger, Terrence Brown as the driver, and DeAndre Smith and Orlando Anderson in the back seats. He claimed to have given the weapon to Orlando Anderson, who had carried out the shooting. Speculation has come about as to whether or not Dwayne Davis had been a fall guy for a larger plot, as his original testimony had gotten him out of a life sentence. Davis had been set up in a sting operation by a government task force called Wrap It Up, which had been created to deflect LAPD involvement in the murder of rapper Biggie Smalls. Davis had been set up in a sting operation by the task force, to which he had been offered a proffer agreement where he could admit to crimes to investigators regarding the Biggie case. He then told the task force he had helped out his nephew with carrying out the Tupac murder. Davis would then tell filmmaker RJ Bond he had not told the truth to the task force in order to get out of the life sentence they had set him up in.
What I believe that you told Greg Katie was what Greg Katie wanted.
Yeah. Get out of trouble. This man was talking about 25 years. I didn't have no 25 years, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Davis had been under the impression that he could repeat himself on platforms, to which he had been arrested externally by Vegas police in 2023. He has since claimed to have made up the story for monetary gain. The same detectives who had set him up in a sting operation had been behind negotiating a $150,000 deal to repeat his story in the BET series Death Row Chronicles, which had gone on to lead to his arrest. Suge Knight on 3 different occasions had claimed that Orlando Anderson had not been the shooter. He first said this in his 2018 interview with Michael Douglas Carlin.
And the sad thing about it, Orlando wasn't even the shooter, you know? It's fantastic, not at all.
He then repeated the claims in a 2023 Collect Cool podcast.
They put the narrative out there was a lie saying Baby Lane shot him, which he wasn't the shooter.
Suge had once again said Orlando Anderson and Dwayne Davis had not been behind it during a 2023 interview with TMZ.
Orlando was the shooter and Keefe was in on it. Is that correct?
No.
Then who shot Tupac?
It wasn't Anderson, so that's all I got to say about that part.
You are saying Orlando was not the shooter. Do I have that right?
1,000%.
Medical records reveal Orlando Anderson had gone to the Sunrise Medical Center in Vegas to treat his shoulder, which had popped out of the socket due to the MGM Grand incident. Orlando Anderson had been right-handed, to which the shooter had been identified as left-handed. The Battle for Compton documentary by R.J. Bond claimed LAPD detective Russell Paul had been notified by Vegas police that Orlando Anderson had been on CCTV at the MGM Grand Lobby Bar with Southside Compton Crip Corey Edwards.
And if Orlando Anderson was in fact at that bar, according to Corey Edwards, you don't think the Las Vegas Police Department would have checked the closed-circuit cameras at the MGM to find out whether that was true? Well, Russell Poole said they did, and Russell Poole said that that was true.
Suge Knight, in his 2018 interview with Michael Douglas Carlin, would expand on his claims in stating it had been LAPD Rampart cop Rafael Perez who had been involved in the incident.
Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too.
Rafael Perez had been identified by at least 5 people as providing security for death row. Snoop Dogg's cousin Joe Cool, along with artist C-Style, had both identified Rafael Perez as being around death row in a 2021 documentary, Last Man Standing.
I've seen David back plenty of times.
Who was the other one? Rafael Perez.
Rafael Perez, seen him too.
Officer Perez, he was friends with Suge. I've seen him up there several times, and he was friends with Suge. I seen him in uniform and out of uniform.
LAPD Senior Lead Detective Kenneth Knox had identified Rafael Perez as providing off-duty security for death row at Can-Am Recording Studio. The former mayor of Compton, Omar Bradley, had identified Rafael Perez as being with Reggie Wright Jr. and Suge Knight during a meeting he had with them. The former LAPD Police Chief Bernard Parks, in an interview with filmmaker Nick Broomfield, had identified Rampart cops Rafael Perez and David Mack as providing off-duty security for death row.
We know that David Mack and Rafael Perez both work security in this rap culture as it relates to some of these artists. But we have had
the death
row records.
Suge Knight's ex-wife Sharifa Knight, who had been in control of Nightlife Management, which managed death row artists, had been in FBI documents as having an affair with Rampart cop Kevin Gaines starting in 1993. She revealed death row artist Snoop Dogg, who she had been managing, had been paying the Rampart cops in cash to provide off-duty security.
Kevin Gaines, did you ever cut him some checks or something like that from Buffalo Records?
No. Even when he worked with, and I don't even think he's the one that worked. He got his friends to do it. They were paid cash by Snoop.
FBI documents reveal Kevin Gaines had been in Vegas while on a special assignment for the LAPD during the time of the Tupac shooting. R.J. Bond in Sam Tripoli's podcast claims he believes Kevin Gaines had been the shooter.
I happen to think there's a different guy that was the shooter that was involved. I think I know who it was. The guy's name is Kevin Gaines. He was dating Suge Knight's estranged wife. If Suge Knight dies and the spouse can inherit Death Row Records, and she's buddy with the number 2 guy at Death Row Records who wants to take over the label, so they got their proxy, then you've got this guy, and again, Kevin Gaines was in Vegas. We can prove, unlike Keefe D, we can prove Kevin Gaines was in Vegas. There's all kinds of LAPD material that says he was in Vegas the night of the shooting.
The Rampart cops associated to the case, being Kevin Gaines, David Mack, and Nino Durden, had all have been left-handed. David Mack had a habit of shooting 13 times in numerous officer-involved shootings. This could be seen in a 93 shooting of Jesse Vicino, who had been shot 13 times by David Mack while with Rafael Perez. The BMW had been shot at 13 times. Michael Douglas Carlin claimed he feels Kevin Gaines may have finished off Tupac in hospital, which may have been the reason why Tupac was shaking the bed to Mopreme. 5 LAPD officers have been identified with Snoop Dogg at the hospital. Suge Knight is now claiming he believes his former security with crooked cops had worked with the Crips in an attempt to kill both himself and Tupac for financial gain. In this video, we took a look into the final pieces of media connected to Tupac. A reporter in disguise had gained access to the room and captured media of Tupac in his final state. IMDb indexes this as one of the photos. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.